I'm Emily, a 34-year-old woman from Boston, and I thought I had my career under control. For 5 years, I'd poured my heart into my job as a marketing director at a mid-sized tech firm in the city. My boss, Greg, always praised my campaigns, but his compliments came with a sharp edge, a subtle way of reminding me he held the reins. I ignored the red flags. His late-night emails, his insistence I cancel personal plans for urgent projects, and the way he'd take credit for my ideas in board meetings. I thought loyalty would pay off. I was wrong. I was on a family vacation in Acadia National Park, sitting by a campfire with my sister and her kids, when my phone buzzed. Greg's name flashed on the screen. I stepped away, expecting a quick check-in. Instead, his voice was smug, almost gleeful. "Emily, you're fired. I've given your position to someone more dedicated. Clean out your desk when you're back in Boston." I froze, the crackling fire fading into the background. "You're letting me go?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. "Yeah," he said, chuckling. "Kelly's been killing it. She's in the office late, not off camping. Good luck finding something else." The call ended, and I stood there, the Maine woods silent around me. Kelly, my assistant, the one I'd trained, mentored, and trusted. The betrayal stung, but Greg's casual cruelty lit a fire in me. I'd suspected for months that Greg was undermining me. He'd started sidelining me in meetings, praising Kelly's fresh ideas that sounded suspiciously like my own. I'd brushed it off, thinking it was just office politics. But this, firing me while I was on my first vacation in years, replacing me with my assistant and laughing about it. That was a line crossed. What Greg didn't know was that I'd been quietly documenting everything. Every email, every stolen idea, every time he'd pressured me to work unpaid overtime, I'd saved it all, not out of paranoia, but because I'd learned to trust my instincts. Back at the campsite, I didn't tell my family. I smiled, roasted marshmallows, and let the kids braid my hair. Inside, my mind was racing. Greg thought he'd won, but he'd underestimated me. I wasn't just going to roll over. The next morning, I called my friend Sarah, a labor attorney in Boston. "He fired you without cause while you were on approved leave?" she said, her voice sharp. "That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Send me everything you've got." I emailed her my files, screenshots of Greg's emails claiming my work, timestamps showing I'd worked 60-hour weeks, and performance reviews proving I'd exceeded expectations. Sarah's response was immediate. "We've got him." When I returned to Boston, I didn't go to the office. Instead, I met Sarah at a coffee shop in Back Bay. "Greg's violated multiple labor laws," she said, flipping through my evidence. "And Kelly's promotion? It's based on your work. We can sue for wrongful termination, intellectual property theft, and emotional distress." I nodded, feeling a calm resolve. This wasn't just about my job, it was about reclaiming my dignity. A week later, Sarah sent a formal demand letter to Greg and the company's HR department, outlining the lawsuit and demanding my reinstatement, back pay, and damages. I didn't want my job back. I wanted justice. Greg called me that evening, his voice shaky. "Emily, this is ridiculous. You're blowing this out of proportion. Let's talk." I leaned back in my apartment, sipping tea, and said, "No, Greg. You fired me on vacation and gave my job to someone passing off my work as her own. You talked to my lawyer." The next day, I got a call from HR. They wanted to settle. Greg had tried to spin a story, but my documentation was ironclad. Kelly had been feeding him my campaign plans, claiming them as hers, and Greg had eaten it up, too lazy to check. The company offered a 6-figure settlement, an apology, and a guarantee that Greg would face internal consequences. I pushed back, demanding Kelly's demotion and a public acknowledgement that my work had been stolen. They agreed. When I walked into the office to sign the papers, Greg was there, avoiding my gaze. Kelly sat in the corner, her face pale. "Emily," Greg muttered, "I didn't mean for this to happen." I smiled, unflinching. "You meant to humiliate me, Greg. You thought I'd just disappear. But I didn't." I turned to Kelly. "And you? I trusted you. Enjoy starting over." I left the office with my head high, the settlement check wired to my account. A month later, I started my own marketing consultancy in Boston. My first client was a competitor of my old firm, and they loved my work Greg and Kelly could never replicate. Greg was demoted, and Kelly was back to an entry-level role, her reputation in tatters. As I sat in my new home office, overlooking the Charles River, I felt a quiet triumph. Greg's smug laugh had been his downfall, and my evidence had been my salvation. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving on my own terms.